Every time the fate of the A-10 is discussed, it becomes a battle of worldviews. On one side are the modernization advocates, who speak in terms of budget, range, and speed. On the other are the frontline military, who understand the importance of effective air support. It's funny that they're trying to justify the Warthog's write-off not even by its shortcomings, but by its outdated appearance. But pilots love this plane, and the infantry knows that there's no better friend than the A-10. So why does the aging attack aircraft evoke such a profound emotional response? And how did this noisy, ungainly craft become a symbol of efficiency, even in the midst of the stealth fighter era? In the late 1960s, the United States faced an urgent need for a specialized aircraft to support ground troops. By the time of the Vietnam War, the U.S. Air Force's only close air support aircraft was the propeller-driven Douglas A-1 Skyraider of the 1940s. It was slow, vulnerable to ground fire, and had only modest armament. The result was an impressive loss of about 266 of these aircraft in combat over the Vietnamese jungle. In September 1966, General John P. McConnell, Chief of Staff of the U.S. Air Force, issued an order to develop a specialized CAS, close air support, aircraft under the new Attack Experimental AX program. A year later, a request for information was distributed to 21 defense contractors. However, the final requirements were not formulated by U.S. Air Force representatives until the spring of 1970, when the service submitted a more detailed request for proposals. These emphasized a maximum speed of 460 miles per hour, a mission radius of 285 miles, an external load of up to 16,000 pounds, a takeoff distance of up to 4,000 feet, and a price per aircraft of no more than $1.4 million, or about $12 million today. The X was the first U.S. Air Force aircraft designed exclusively for CAS, and the Warthog was, not without reason, teased as the first aircraft designed around a gun. And there's some truth to this because, in parallel with the request for the development of the attack aircraft, the command issued a separate request for proposals regarding a rotary automatic 30mm X-can with a rate of fire of 4,000 rounds per minute and the highest possible muzzle velocity. After a lengthy selection process, Fairchild Republic was chosen to manufacture the aircraft, with General Electric responsible for the can. The entire concept of the A-10 revolved around one idea: close, continuous support of ground troops. It was supposed to hover over the battlefield, not flee after the first enemy salvo, but strike again and again. The designers of this attack aircraft did their homework at the highest level, simplifying the technical solutions to the utmost. The twin TF-34GE-100 turbofan engines, each producing 9,065 volts of thrust, are mounted high on the fuselage, away from the ground and potential damage. This placement allows them to operate even while being serviced and rearmed on the ground, greatly reducing return to combat time. Their infrared signature is also reduced by the bypass ratio and the exhaust routing over the tailplanes. Additionally, engineers protected the engines from the rest of the airframe with firewalls and fire suppression equipment. The A-10's 4 fuel tanks were positioned closer to the center and separated from the fuselage, so that enemy shells would have to penetrate the aircraft's skin before they could get the outer skin of the fuel tanks. Moreover, damaged fuel lines are self-sealing. If the damage exceeds these self-sealing capabilities, check valves will prevent fuel from entering the damaged tank. Most of the Warthog's fuel system components are located inside the fuel tanks, so component failure does not result in fuel loss, and the refueling system is designed to purge after use. Additional protection against debris and fuel leakage in the event of damage is provided by mesh polyurethane foam covering the inside and outside of the fuel tanks. But what if the enemy manages to destroy all 4 fuel tanks? Well, in that case, the A-10 and its 2 self-sealing sumps guarantee a fuel reserve of at least 230 miles, which, although it sounds crazy, has been proven by A-10 pilots during combat sorties over the past 50 years. Although the plane got the nickname Warthog due to the external resemblance of its protruding fangs, guns, and massive front landing gear to the snout of an African boar, in our opinion, the nickname Terminator would be much more appropriate. After all, this machine is practically indestructible. Firstly, it can easily survive direct hits from armor-piercing and high-explosive shells of 23mm caliber or lower. Secondly, the A-10 has dual redundancy in its hydraulic flight systems and a mechanical backup in case of hydraulic failure. Thirdly, the manual reverser mode allows the pilot to return to base even if the aircraft has lost one engine, half of the tail, the elevator, or half of a wing. Finally, the Warthog's cockpit and flight control systems are protected by 12,200 pounds of titanium aircraft armor, also known as the armor bathtub, consisting of 0.5 to 1.5 inch thick titanium plates that can withstand 23mm cannon fire and indirect 57mm gel fragmentation. The interior of this bathtub is covered with a multi-layer nylon spall shield, and the front windshield and canopy are resistant to small arms fire. What can we say if about 6% of the A-10's empty weight is due to its armor? To make it even more difficult for enemies to damage the aircraft, many A-10s have a fake canopy painted dark gray on the underside of the hull, just behind the gun. This not only confuses enemies about the aircraft's position, but also about which direction it is maneuvering. The A-10's greatest asset is its cannon, the GAU-8/A Avenger, one of the most powerful aircraft cannons ever created. It's a hydraulically driven, 7-barreled automatic Gatling gun that literally eats enemy armor for breakfast. The Avenger's rate of fire was originally an optional 2,100 rounds per minute low, or 4,200 high. This eventually settled at a single value, 3,900 rounds per minute. At that rate, it would take about 18 seconds of continuous fire to empty its magazine. However, in practice, it is limited to ohm, or 2-second bursts to avoid overheating and conserve ammunition. There are no technical limitations on firing duration. The pilot can empty the entire magazine in one burst without damaging the GAU-8. However, this significantly reduces the service life of the barrel and necessitates additional checks. The innovation in GAU-8/A ammunition design was the use of aluminum alloy casings instead of traditional steel or brass, allowing a 30% increase in ammunition capacity for a given weight. In terms of size, the 30mm Avenger cartridges are comparable to a standard beer bottle, while the gun's overall dimensions exceed a Volkswagen Beetle. It's worth noting that to remove this weapon, maintenance personnel must install a jack under the aircraft's tail. Otherwise, the plane would tip forward, as the cannon accounts for the lion's share of the Warthog's front weight. Was there a chance this legend would go without updates? No, sir. In the late 1970s, A-10s received a pay-penny laser receiver mounted on the pylon under the starboard side of the cockpit. This allowed laser designation and increased targeting precision. The 1980s saw the addition of an inertial navigation system. In the early 1990s, the aircraft received the Low-Altitude Safety and Targeting Enhancement (LASTE) upgrade, which included computerized weapons guidance and autopilot and a terrain warning system, especially important for low-flying aircraft like the A-10. The late 90s and early 2000s were also busy. The A-10 received a GPS navigation system, multifunction displays, and an upgraded LASTE system with the Integrated Flight and Fire Control Computer, IFFCC. The Air Force recognized that the Warthog's engines were deteriorating and planned to replace them, but the project estimated at $2 billion in 2001 was shelved.